Bharani Nakshatra, understanding chunk size, big or little. Some people grasp the bigger picture instantly, focusing on broad concepts and long-term impact, while others break things down into precise details, analyzing step by step before taking action. Bharani Nakshatra, known for its depth, intensity, and transformative power, tends to internalize experiences deeply. But whether they process information in big chunks, macro thinking, or small chunks, micro thinking, depends on planetary placements within Bharani. If the sun is in the first house in Bharani, their understanding is naturally big picture oriented. They don't get lost in details, but instead focus on overarching themes, leadership, and long-term identity building. They process life through broad strokes, seeing patterns rather than specifics, which makes them great visionaries, but sometimes impatient with small details. If the sun is in the seventh house, their macro focus shifts toward relationships and public influence. They see long-term relationship dynamics rather than daily interactions, and evaluate the overall trajectory of their partnerships rather than the nuances of each moment. If Rahu is in the 10th house in Bharani, their understanding chunk size is massive, meaning they focus on career, status, and large-scale success rather than day-to-day tasks. They want big results, rapid growth, and unconventional achievements, often leaving minor details to others while chasing ambitious goals. If Rahu moves to the 4th house, however, their attention turns inward and understanding becomes more detail-focused. They start analyzing family dynamics, emotional imprints, and psychological patterns in depth, processing life through smaller personal experiences rather than societal impact. If Mercury is in the 3rd house in Bharani, their understanding is highly detailed, thriving on facts, figures, structured analysis, and rapid information processing. They enjoy breaking things down into smaller components, absorbing short-term details, and mastering information in incremental steps. If Mercury is in the 9th house, their focus flips to big concepts and higher knowledge, meaning they absorb philosophies, belief systems, and expansive ideas rather than focusing on technical or procedural details. They care more about wisdom and ideological frameworks than structured, detail-heavy execution. If Jupiter is in the 6th house in Bharani, their understanding leans toward precision, discipline, and methodical execution. They analyze, refine, and organize, breaking big lessons into digestible parts, making them great at structured learning, practical application, and steady mastery. But if Jupiter is in the 12th house, their processing expands outward. They focus on spiritual wisdom, abstract concepts, and universal truths, often missing practical details in favor of cosmic, interconnected thinking. Bharani's strength lies in its ability to absorb and process life intensely, but planetary placements define whether they focus on broad strokes or dissect details with precision. Their challenge is balancing big-picture vision with real-world execution, ensuring they don't lose themselves in large-scale ideas or get stuck in the minutiae of experience. Bharani Nakshatra, frame of reference, internal or external. Some people trust their own judgment without needing validation, while others seek feedback, confirmation, or external measures of success before feeling secure in their choices. Bharani Nakshatra, with its intense, enduring, and karmic nature, tends to process experiences deeply, but whether they are internally referenced, self-validated, or externally referenced, seeking outside approval, depends on planetary placements in Bharani. The 4th and 10th house placements of key planets reveal how they define success, make decisions, and process personal or professional validation. If Jupiter is in the 4th house in Bharani, their frame of reference is deeply internal. They derive wisdom from personal experiences, emotional depth, and intuitive knowing. They trust their inner morals, values, and philosophical outlook, rarely needing external approval to validate their choices. Their sense of security comes from within, and they often have a strong belief system that guides them, making them resistant to external pressure. However, if Jupiter is in the 10th house, their reference frame shifts externally. Success is measured by social standing, recognition, and how they are perceived in their career. They may seek titles, achievements, or public acknowledgement as proof that they are on the right path. If the moon is in the fourth house in Bharani, their frame of reference is internal but emotionally driven. They make decisions based on what feels right deep within, often guided by their emotional memories and subconscious conditioning. They are not easily swayed by social expectations, but may still struggle with deeply ingrained family or ancestral influences. However, if the thought moon is in the 10th house, they become externally referenced, processing their emotions through public image, career validation, and how others respond to them. They need recognition, admiration, and external feedback to feel emotionally secure in their professional path. If Venus is in the fourth house in Bharani, their sense of worth and validation is internal, shaped by their personal sense of comfort, aesthetics, and emotional security. They don't need public validation for love or beauty. They define those concepts based on how they feel, rather than what others expect. However, if Venus is in the 10th house, their reference frame becomes externally focused. They care about social status, professional relationships, and how they are perceived in terms of charm, diplomacy, and success. They may measure their achievements based on external admiration, financial rewards, or high-profile recognition. If Saturn is in the fourth house in Bharani, their reference frame is internally structured, meaning they base their decisions on discipline, personal responsibility, and a strong inner sense of duty. They hold themselves to strict internal standards, often feeling like they must prove themselves to themselves first before caring about external approval. However, if Saturn is in the 10th house, their validation becomes externally conditioned. They measure success through professional status, hierarchy, and society's expectations of responsibility and achievement. They may push themselves to meet external standards, fearing failure if they don't reach visible milestones. Bharani's strength lies in its ability to deeply commit to its path, but planetary placements determine whether they find motivation from within or seek validation from the world. Learning to balance internal conviction with external awareness helps them navigate both personal fulfillment and societal expectations without feeling trapped in either extreme. Bharani Nakshatra, action preference, proactive or reactive. Some people take action before the world even realizes change is needed, while others respond to circumstances, waiting for the right cues before making their move. Bharani Nakshatra, with its depth, intensity, and strong sense of responsibility, is naturally inclined to act when necessary, neither rushing impulsively nor delaying unnecessarily. However, planetary placements in Bharani, particularly Mars, Mercury, and Rahu in the 3rd, 5th, and 10th houses, can either enhance or distort this energy, making an individual more proactive, self-initiating, or reactive, responsive to external conditions. If Mars is in the 3rd house in Bharani, their action preference is highly proactive, making them assertive, bold, and relentless in their pursuits. They don't wait for permission. They initiate conflict, challenge opponents, and push forward through sheer willpower. This placement complements Bharani's enduring nature, turning it into a warrior-like drive, but can also lead to unnecessary aggression or impatience, especially in communication and competitive situations. If Mars is in the 5th house, their proactivity turns into creative leadership and risk-taking. They don't just initiate action. They innovate, experiment, and take bold leaps in personal expression, romance, and speculative ventures. If Mars is in the 10th house, proactivity becomes ambition-fueled, making them workaholics who push their careers forward through sheer force. However, this may clash with Bharani's slow, transformational energy, making them impatient with processes that require endurance rather than immediate breakthroughs. If Miss Mercury is in the 3rd house in Bharani, action is proactive but mentally driven. They are quick thinkers, excellent strategists, and highly persuasive. Unlike Mars, which acts on instinct, Mercury in this house makes them tactically proactive. They speak before others do, initiate discussions, and thrive in high-energy intellectual debates. This works well with Bharani's deep processing nature, allowing them to act deliberately while still being sharp and adaptive. But if Mercury is in the fifth house, the action becomes more reactive, especially in personal expression and creativity. They wait for inspiration, feedback, or an audience before stepping forward, making them less likely to initiate without external motivation. If Mercury is in the 10th house, their approach to action is externally driven, meaning they take action based on social and professional demands rather than personal impulses. This can sometimes create indecision or overthinking, which may conflict with Bharani's ability to act decisively when committed. If Rahu is in the third house in Bharani, action is erratic, unpredictable, and highly proactive in bursts. They take bold, unconventional steps, often challenging norms and engaging in high-risk strategies. This can distort Bharani's endurance-based nature, making them restless, seeking immediate change, rather than allowing transformation to unfold gradually. If Rahu is in the fifth house, their proactivity becomes wildly creative and boundary-pushing. They initiate disruptive artistic expressions, unconventional romantic choices, and take risks in speculative fields. While this adds flair and unpredictability, it may also clash with Bharani's steady, committed approach to creation and responsibility. If Rahu is in the 10th house, their action preference is externally reactive, meaning they chase status, recognition, and authority based on social expectations rather than personal convictions. This may lead to opportunistic decision-making, where they react to public trends or professional shifts rather than staying grounded in Bharani's karmic mission. Bharani's ideal action style is measured but firm, ensuring that once action is taken, it is fully committed and transformative. However, planetary placements in Bharani can either enhance proactive leadership, make them highly adaptable, or create internal struggles between impulsivity and endurance. Learning to balance initiative with patience allows them to act at the right moment, neither too soon nor too late, but always with purpose and power. Bharani Nakshatra, Cognitive Subconscious Patterns. Some people move through life with an intensity that feels almost unshakable. They don't just experience, they absorb, endure, and transform. Bharani Nakshatra isn't about quick reactions, it's about depth, resilience, and the weight of experience. Their subconscious processing is wired for absorption and integration, meaning they don't just react to the world, they internalize it, process it, and emerge stronger. If we break it down through NLP cognitive styles, we can see exactly how they retain, filter, and engage with information in ways that set them apart. If their mind is visually dominant, they don't just see the world, they hold on to mental images, replaying them with emotional depth. They remember experiences not as fleeting snapshots, but as deeply ingrained imprints, rich with meaning and weight. If Venus is placed in Bharani in the fourth house, their memory of home, relationships, and early emotional experiences becomes imprinted in vivid detail, shaping their perceptions of beauty, love, and security. If Venus is placed in the 10th house, their visual processing becomes externally directed, meaning they cultivate an image of stability, power, and endurance, ensuring that they are seen as refined, respected, and accomplished in the world. If the Sun is in the first house in Bharani, their visual memory becomes deeply tied to self-identity and confidence. They process life through the images of who they are and who they aspire to be, meaning that public perception and personal legacy become powerful motivators. They envision themselves as strong, commanding, and unyielding, drawing power from mental images of their past successes or role models they admire. If the Sun shifts to the 7th house, however, their visual processing moves toward relationships and partnerships. They see themselves through the lens of others, crafting their self-image based on how they are perceived in social or romantic settings. If the Moon is placed in the 3rd house in Bharani, their visual recall is deeply emotional, meaning they store memories and mental pictures that carry intense emotional weight. They see and feel every experience simultaneously, making them sensitive to visual cues, body language, and changes in their environment. If the Moon is in the 9th house, this expands into philosophical imagery, meaning they are drawn to symbols, spiritual visions, and grand ideas that define their worldview. Their dreams, aspirations, and internal visions hold deep emotional significance, and they process life through imagined narratives and symbolic meaning. Bharani isn't wired for surface-level engagement. They live through depth, process through endurance, and transform through experience. Their subconscious is built not for speed, but for intensity, ensuring that every lesson, every emotion, every hardship becomes a permanent part of their evolution. They don't just learn, they become the lessons they have lived. Bharani Nakshatra, motivation direction. Some people move through life driven by a deep, unshakable force, never acting on impulse, but with a sense of responsibility, endurance, and karmic purpose. Bharani Nakshatra isn't about chasing instant gratification. It's about long-term commitment, resilience, and transformation. Their motivation isn't fleeting. It builds over time, pushing them toward completion. Whether they are motivated internally, self-driven, or externally, reacting to outside forces, depends on planetary placements within Bharani, shaping how they engage with goals, challenges, and responsibilities. If Mars is in the first house in Bharani, motivation is purely internal. They act because they must, fueled by a personal sense of drive and self-determination. They don't wait for permission or validation, nor do they need external rewards to stay motivated. Challenges ignite their willpower, and they push forward because they refuse to quit, no matter how difficult the road gets. But if Mars is in the seventh house, motivation becomes externally reactive, meaning they thrive when challenged by others, proving themselves in competitive environments or through high-pressure relationships. They often need a rival, a goal to surpass, or external pressure to activate their full energy. If Rahu is in the 10th house in Bharani, motivation becomes externally ambition-driven. They seek status, power, and public recognition, often feeling restless until they attain a position of influence. They are obsessed with reaching the top, fueled by a desire to prove themselves on a large scale, often chasing unconventional success paths. If Rahu is in the 4th house, motivation shifts toward internal emotional fulfillment, meaning they seek security, transformation of their home life, and a sense of belonging that they never quite feel they have. Their drive comes from an underlying dissatisfaction, pushing them to constantly reshape their inner world. If Saturn is in the 6th house in Bharani, motivation is internally structured, meaning they are driven by discipline, routine, and the slow, steady mastery of a skill or responsibility. They don't need external rewards to keep going. They are built for endurance, seeing long-term progress as their ultimate motivation. If Saturn is in the 12th house, motivation becomes more detached and subconscious. They act not out of external ambition, but due to karmic duty, unseen obligations, or deep-rooted spiritual callings. Their motivation is less about visible success and more about fulfilling something on a soul level, even if they can't define it rationally. If the sun is in the 3rd house in Bharani, motivation is externally activated, meaning they thrive in competitive, intellectually stimulating environments where they can prove themselves through communication, learning, and adaptability. They need to see measurable progress, external challenges, or social recognition to stay engaged. If the sun is in the 9th house, motivation shifts toward internal expansion, driven by a thirst for wisdom, meaning, and long-term philosophical growth. They are less concerned with proving themselves in the present and more with creating a lasting legacy of truth, knowledge, and spiritual exploration. Bharani Nakshatra isn't motivated by shallow pursuits or fleeting desires. They need purpose, depth, and emotional connection to fully engage with their goals. Whether self-driven warriors, endurance strategists, ambitious achievers, or spiritual seekers, their motivation comes from a place of intensity, thus ensuring that once they commit, they will see things through to the end, no matter the cost. Bharani Nakshatra, attention direction. Some people move through life focused on the past, present, or future, shaping how they absorb information, make decisions, and engage with their surroundings. Bharani Nakshatra, with its depth, endurance, and transformative energy, is naturally drawn to experiences that leave a lasting imprint. But whether their attention is past-focused, present-immersed, or future-driven depends on planetary placements within Bharani. If the sun is in the first house in Bharani, attention is fully present-oriented. They focus on who they are in the moment, how they are perceived, and how they assert their identity. They are highly aware of their personal power, reputation, and immediate environment, making them confident, self-directed individuals who don't dwell on the past or worry too much about the future. If the sun is in the seventh house, their attention shifts outward, becoming future-focused on relationships, partnerships, and social status. They are constantly evaluating how their connections will evolve, where their public image is heading, and how they can shape long-term success through social influence. If Rahu is in the 10th house in Bharani, attention is fixated on the future, often obsessing over status, career advancements, and achieving unconventional success. They are always looking ahead, planning their next move, and striving toward recognition, sometimes ignoring present details in their pursuit of long-term goals. If Rahu moves to the 4th house, attention turns toward past influences, deep emotional imprints, and the restructuring of their personal foundation. They may feel tied to unresolved ancestral patterns or childhood experiences, constantly reflecting on their roots, even as they push for personal transformation. If Mercury is in the 3rd house in Bharani, attention is rapidly shifting between past, present, and future, making them mentally agile, highly curious, and quick thinking. They thrive on constant engagement, learning, and adaptation, but their short-term attention span means they rarely dwell on one thing for too long. If Mercury moves to the 9th house, attention expands toward long-term intellectual and philosophical pursuits, meaning they may lose focus on immediate concerns while contemplating broader life perspectives, higher wisdom, and the bigger picture of existence. If Jupiter is in the 6th house in Bharani, attention becomes present-focused, emphasizing daily responsibilities, structured routines, and the steady pursuit of wisdom through experience. They are deeply engaged in personal growth, service, and refining their skills, focusing on how their actions shape their immediate environment. If Jupiter moves to the 12th house, attention becomes highly past-oriented, reflecting on spiritual evolution, karmic debts, and subconscious influences. They often feel drawn to mysticism, dream analysis, and understanding their deeper purpose through past life insights or hidden knowledge. Bharani's attention is intense and unwavering. Whether anchored in the past, focused on the present, or chasing the future, they process life deeply and emotionally. Their challenge is learning when to shift their focus, ensuring they can navigate time fluidly rather than becoming trapped in cycles of nostalgia, immediacy, or distant aspirations. Bharani Nakshatra. Operational style, options versus procedures. Some people thrive on flexibility, constantly exploring new possibilities, while others prefer structured, methodical execution, following a step-by-step plan. Bharani Nakshatra, ruled by Venus and symbolizing the cycle of birth, endurance, and transformation, naturally leans toward commitment and structured effort. But planetary placements in Bharani, especially Rahu, Mars, Mercury, and Saturn in the 3rd, 6th, and 10th houses, can either reinforce or challenge this preference, influencing whether they operate with a fluid, options-based mindset or a procedural, step-driven approach. If Rahu is in the 3rd house in Bharani, their operational style is purely options-based. They thrive in highly dynamic, unpredictable environments, preferring to pivot, adapt, and explore multiple paths rather than sticking to a single structured method. They are drawn to media, business, or communication-based roles, where their ability to manipulate situations and shift direction instantly becomes an asset. However, this can also lead to restlessness and an inability to see things through, clashing with Bharani's natural inclination for steady transformation. If Rahu is in the 6th house, the operational style remains options-driven, but with a problem-solving twist. They thrive in competitive or conflict-driven environments, preferring to experiment with multiple solutions rather than following fixed routines. This works well in crisis management, entrepreneurship, or unconventional service roles, but may cause frustration in rigid job structures that demand consistency. If Mars is in the third house in Bharani, they operate with aggressive flexibility, meaning they make fast, instinctive decisions, but with an element of force and persistence. They may engage in trial and error methods, constantly testing new challenges and techniques until they find what works best. However, this can lead to impulsivity and unnecessary risks, disrupting Bharani's inherent ability to endure and refine experiences before transformation occurs. If Mars is in the sixth house, their operational style shifts toward a hybrid approach. They still prefer action and change, but integrate structured strategies to achieve their goals. This placement makes them highly disciplined in work and fitness, but may create a need for controlled aggression to ensure long-term success rather than burning out from short-term victories. If Mercury is in the sixth house in Bharani, they follow a procedural, structured approach, focusing on efficiency, analysis, and step-by-step refinement. They prefer organized workflows, predictable routines, and measurable progress, making them excellent in administrative, technical, or health-related professions. Unlike Mars, which thrives on spontaneous adjustments, Mercury in this position ensures that each action is well calculated and executed according to a pre-designed method. However, this can lead to overthinking and excessive focus on details, slowing down the natural transformative energy of Bharani. If Saturn is in the 10th house in Bharani, their operational style is deeply procedural, systematic, and long-term oriented. They thrive in hierarchical, rule-based environments, excelling in structured leadership roles, corporate settings, or governance. Their methodical nature aligns well with Bharani's commitment to endurance and transformation, allowing them to build legacies rather than chase quick success. However, this placement may also create rigidity, resistance to change, or excessive fear of failure, leading them to stick to traditional methods even when innovation is needed. Bharani Nakshatra inherently values commitment, responsibility, and transformation, making it more aligned with procedural work styles that require structured effort and persistence. However, planetary influences can push them toward flexibility, adaptability, or even erratic decision-making, requiring them to balance their need for consistency with an openness to new opportunities. Those who master this balance become powerful strategists capable of navigating both discipline and adaptability in pursuit of long-term success. Have Bharani Nakshatra, general or specific? Some people see the bigger picture, focusing on overarching themes and long-term vision, while others pay attention to precise details, analyzing situations with deep specificity. Bharani Nakshatra, known for its transformational and karmic nature, naturally absorbs life experiences deeply, but whether they process information through broad concepts, general, or specific details specific, depends on planetary placements. Jupiter, Mercury, and Ketu in the 1st, 5th, and 9th houses can either expand their vision or narrow their focus, influencing how they interpret and engage with the world around them. If Jupiter is in the 1st house in Bharani, their view is inherently general. They operate with a broad, philosophical mindset, always looking at the bigger picture of life, personal growth, and destiny. They don't get caught up in small obstacles or trivial matters. Instead, they focus on expansion, wisdom, and long-term impact. However, this can make them overlook details or underestimate practical limitations, causing frustration when real-world specifics demand their attention. If Jupiter is in the 9th house, their general thinking expands even further. They seek universal truths, higher knowledge, and philosophical depth, often preferring abstract thought over immediate practicality. If Mercury is in the 5th house in Bharani, their view is highly specific, focusing on details, creativity, and intellectual precision. They thrive in environments where analysis, structured thought, and problem-solving are required, making them excellent at fine-tuning artistic, educational, or strategic endeavors. Unlike Jupiter, which sees patterns and trends, Mercury in this placement zeroes in on facts, logical structures, and the exact workings of an idea. If Mercury moves to the ninth house, their thinking becomes more generalized, preferring philosophical curiosity and intellectual exploration over microanalysis, meaning they may jump between broad ideas without delving too deeply into specifics. If Ketu is in the first house in Bharani, their view becomes detached and paradoxical, neither fully general nor fully specific. They have an intuitive sense of larger patterns, but may struggle to articulate or logically structure their thoughts. Their understanding is often subconscious or instinctive, making them feel like they just know things without needing to break them down logically. If Ketu is in the fifth house, their perspective shifts toward specific but nonlinear thinking, meaning they excel at noticing hidden details, symbolic meanings, or abstract connections others might miss. But they may struggle with conventional reasoning or structured learning. Bharani's in-depth and transformative nature makes it naturally lean toward a mix of broad awareness and focused engagement, depending on the planetary influences. When planetary placements emphasize big-picture thinking, they thrive in visionary and leadership roles. But when detail-oriented influences dominate, they become methodical experts capable of profound precision and mastery. Their true power lies in balancing the ability to see beyond the present moment while still recognizing the importance of fine details that shape the path forward. Bharani Nakshatra, work preferences, together, proximity, or solo. Some people thrive in collaborative environments, while others prefer working alone or within their own space while still staying connected to a team. Bharani Nakshatra, known for its intense commitment, endurance, and transformational nature, prefers deeply engaging work that feels meaningful. Whether they work best in teams, together, within a connected but independent space, proximity, or entirely alone, depends on planetary placements. Venus, Mercury, and Ketu in the 3rd, 6th, or 10th houses shape their ability to collaborate, operate independently, or detach from traditional work environments. If Venus is in the 3rd house in Bharani, they prefer working together, thriving in interactive, socially engaging, and creative work environments. They are excellent at collaborating on artistic projects, media, communication, or teamwork-driven fields where beauty, persuasion, and strategy play a role. They work best when engaging with colleagues, exchanging ideas, and navigating dynamic discussions. If Venus moves to the 10th house, they still function well in teams, but now their focus is on leadership within structured industries, meaning they may enjoy team management, diplomacy, or guiding group efforts while maintaining authority. If Mercury is in the 6th house in Bharani, they prefer proximity-based work, where they can stay mentally stimulated by colleagues, but maintain a degree of independence in their tasks. They enjoy roles in writing, business, research, and analytical professions, where they can engage in quick discussions, but also retreat into focused work when necessary. They thrive in organized environments where intellectual engagement is high, but autonomy is respected. If Mercury is in the 10th house, their preference shifts toward proximity with leadership elements, meaning they enjoy being at the center of communication within an organization, but prefer some personal space to strategize and make executive decisions. If Ketu is in the 3rd house in Bharani, they work best solo, preferring self-driven, independent projects that allow them to operate on their own terms. They detach from office politics, excessive collaboration, and overly structured work environments, thriving in roles that involve deep research, creative exploration, or spiritually aligned work that requires solitude. If Ketu is in the 6th house, their solo work style becomes even more pronounced, making them resistant to routine-based jobs, corporate structures, or environments where they must conform to external expectations. They may function best as freelancers, spiritual practitioners, or behind-the-scenes strategists who contribute without needing direct involvement with teams. Bharani's depth, persistence, and ability to commit to long-term efforts make them highly capable in both team-based and independent roles. But planetary placements determine whether they thrive in shared efforts, need space while staying connected, or prefer complete autonomy. Understanding this balance allows them to harness their strongest work style and maximize their potential. Bharani Nakshatra, experience, association versus dissociation. Some people fully immerse themselves in every experience, feeling deeply engaged and emotionally connected, while others step back, observe, and process events from a detached, analytical perspective. Bharani Nakshatra, with its depth, endurance, and karmic intensity, tends to internalize experiences strongly, but planetary placements in Bharani, especially Mercury and Jupiter in the 4th, 5th, and 10th houses, determine whether they associate, fully engage with emotions and experiences, or dissociate, observe, analyze, and process from a distance. If Mercury is in the 4th house in Bharani, they experience life through strong association with emotions, memories, and personal security. They attach deeply to childhood influences, family dynamics, and emotional conversations, making them highly sensitive to their home environment and relationships. They may struggle with detachment as their mind stays connected to personal history and deep emotional imprints. However, if Mercury is in the 10th house, their experience shifts toward dissociation, meaning they process emotions through logic, career achievements, and external success rather than personal feelings. They may view work and status as intellectual problems to be solved rather than emotional experiences to be felt. If Jupiter is in the 5th house in Bharani, their experience is highly associated, meaning they feel deeply connected to their creative expressions, romantic relationships, and personal passions. They immerse themselves in their artistic or intellectual pursuits, feeling a strong emotional bond with everything they create or learn. This placement makes them intensely involved in their personal experiences, often making them idealistic about love, learning, and self-expression. However, if Jupiter is in the 10th house, their experience leans toward dissociation, meaning they focus on the larger philosophical meaning behind events rather than the personal emotional aspect. They may reflect on life lessons, broader societal impacts, or higher wisdom rather than deeply engaging in immediate experiences. If Mercury is in the 5th house in Bharani, their approach to experiences is both intellectual and emotionally engaged, meaning they are highly expressive, communicative, and mentally stimulated by their creative and personal experiences. However, their association is more thought-driven than purely emotional. They analyze their experiences while being immersed in them, making them strong storytellers, teachers, or thinkers in creative and social fields. If this same Mercury is in the 10th house, they move toward dissociation, separating emotions from career and responsibilities, preferring to analyze their ambitions logically rather than becoming emotionally entangled in them. Bharani Nakshatra's karmic depth and emotional intensity naturally incline them toward association, making them deeply invested in their experiences. However, planetary placements can shift them toward a more dissociated perspective, allowing them to step back, reflect, and process events with intellectual distance. The key to their growth and wisdom lies in balancing emotional depth with the ability to detach when necessary, ensuring that they neither drown in experiences nor remain too disconnected to fully live them. Bharani Nakshatra approach, matching versus mismatching. Some people naturally align with patterns, seeking similarities and reinforcing established structures, while others instinctively look for differences, questioning norms and breaking away from convention. Bharani Nakshatra, with its karmic weight and transformative energy, can operate within or against systems depending on planetary influences. Whether they prefer a matching approach, seeking alignment and continuity, or a mismatching approach, challenging and disrupting patterns, depends on the placements of Saturn and Rahu in the 3rd and 6th houses within Bharani. If Saturn is in the 3rd house in Bharani, their approach is matching-oriented, meaning they prefer structured communication, traditional knowledge, and alignment with proven methods. They value discipline in learning, business, and social interactions, making them strong planners and methodical thinkers. They don't take unnecessary risks. They stick to what has been tested and refined, ensuring that every action follows a clear sequence. However, If Saturn is in the sixth house, their matching tendency is even stronger in work ethic, discipline, and problem solving. They follow systems, procedures, and order, ensuring that everything is done with precision and adherence to established norms. Their challenge? Rigid attachment to structure can make them resistant to change or innovation, causing frustration in rapidly evolving environments. If Rahu is in the third house in Bharani, the approach becomes highly mismatching. They don't just challenge conventional thinking, they actively disrupt and redefine how things are done. They are drawn to bold, unconventional communication styles, rebellious learning methods, and careers that involve breaking societal expectations. Unlike Saturn, which follows systems, Rahu creates its own path, making them charismatic but unpredictable, innovative but often restless. If Rahu is in the sixth house, mismatching becomes even more pronounced in work and competition. They seek alternative solutions, refuse to conform to traditional work structures, and often thrive in unconventional career paths. They are rule breakers, finding success by bending or rewriting the rules rather than following them. However, this can also lead to conflict with authority, erratic decision-making, or an inability to stick to one structure long enough to see results. Bharani Nakshatra's natural ability to endure and transform allows it to function in both matching and mismatching modes, depending on planetary influences. Saturn reinforces stability, reliability, and following structured pathways, while Rahu pushes them toward disruption, rebellion, and breaking free from restrictions. The key is knowing when to align with patterns and when to break them, ensuring that their powerful, transformative energy is directed toward meaningful change rather than resistance for the sake of defiance. Bharani Nakshatra, time experience, in time versus through time. Some people live completely in the present, fully immersed in their actions and emotions, while others track time as a sequence, seeing the past, present, and future as part of a larger pattern. Bharani Nakshatra, with its deep endurance and transformational power, often processes experiences with intensity, but whether they are in time, present-focused, or through time, structured awareness of past and future depends on planetary placements. Saturn and Jupiter in the first, seventh house axis influence in-time perception, while their placements in the fourth, 10th axis shape a through-time approach. If Saturn is in the first house in Bharani, their time experience is in time, slow, and deeply rooted in the present moment. They are highly aware of their physical endurance, responsibilities, and immediate challenges, making them methodical in how they engage with the world. They don't dwell on the past or worry too much about the future. Their energy is focused on mastering what is in front of them right now. However, if Saturn is in the seventh house, their in-time awareness shifts toward relationships, meaning they are fully engaged in partnerships, experiencing connections intensely as they happen, without overanalyzing long-term consequences. This can make them deeply committed, but also resistant to letting go of difficult relationships, because they are so anchored in the present emotional weight of their interactions. If Jupiter is in the fourth house in Bharani, their time experience becomes through time, focused on long-term emotional security and karmic patterns. They process life with a broader awareness of how the past influences the present and how choices today affect the future. This makes them highly reflective, cautious with emotional decisions, and deeply invested in preserving traditions, home, and family over generations. If Jupiter moves to the 10th house, their through-time perspective expands toward career, legacy, and public impact. They don't just focus on professional success in the moment, but analyze their trajectory, reputation, and the long-term implications of their work. This can make them exceptional planners and visionaries, but it may also cause delays in action because they are always considering future consequences rather than acting immediately. Bharani Nakshatra's karmic depth and ability to endure long processes make it naturally lean toward a through-time perspective, but planetary placements can shift their time experience toward either immediate presence or long-term strategic awareness. Those with in-time tendencies engage fully in the moment, thriving in deep, immersive experiences. while those with through-time awareness navigate life with a structured, far-reaching perspective, ensuring that their actions align with a larger vision. The challenge is balancing both modes, being present enough to fully live experiences while maintaining the wisdom to plan for the future without hesitation. Bharani Nakshatra, primary interest motivation, people, activities, places, or things. Some people are motivated by deep emotional connections with others, while others thrive on constant movement, exploring new places, or accumulating resources and knowledge. Bharani Nakshatra, with its transformational energy and enduring commitment, absorbs life intensely. But what truly drives them, whether it's people, activities, places, or things, depends on planetary placements. Jupiter and the Moon shape their connection to people, Mars fuels their activity-driven focus, Mercury directs their attachment to places, while Saturn and Rahu dictate their material or knowledge-based motivation toward things. If Jupiter is in the 7th house in Bharani, their primary motivation comes from people, particularly through mentorship, wisdom sharing, and long-term partnerships. They are drawn to guiding others, forming deep bonds, and leaving a legacy through relationships, whether personal or professional. They seek partners and mentors who expand their understanding of life, and their greatest satisfaction comes from uplifting and influencing those around them. However, if the Moon is in the 1st house, their motivation from people is more personal and emotional. They are driven by intimate relationships, nurturing connections, and the need for emotional security. Their sense of self is shaped by how they interact with and are supported by others, making them highly attuned to social and family dynamics. If Mars is in the 3rd house in Bharani, their primary motivation is activity. They thrive in physical challenges, dynamic conversations, and competitive environments. They are driven by high-energy pursuits, hands-on learning, and the need to push themselves through action. Unlike those who seek comfort in relationships or material security, they are fueled by adrenaline, risk-taking, and overcoming obstacles. However, if Mars moves to the 6th house, their action-based motivation becomes more structured and service-oriented. They are drawn to systematic work, problem-solving, and overcoming adversity through endurance rather than impulsive movement. If Mercury is in the 4th house in Bharani, their motivation is strongly tied to places, specifically the need for change, movement, and intellectual exploration in different environments. They may constantly seek new homes, travel often, or feel restless in familiar settings, always needing a shift in location or intellectual stimulation through different cultures and ideas. If Mercury moves to the 10th house, their motivation for places extends to professional spaces, career environments, and the influence of locations on their success. They may be drawn to work that allows them to relocate frequently, interact with different regions, or gain knowledge through changing environments. If Saturn is in the 6th house in Bharani, their motivation is things, specifically structure, resources, and mastery over material stability. They thrive in building something long-lasting, acquiring expertise, and ensuring that their work results in tangible, measurable success. Unlike more emotionally or socially driven placements, they find fulfillment in discipline, slow progress, and accumulating valuable skills or assets. If Rahu is in the 10th house, their material motivation becomes status-focused, driven by ambition, unconventional success, and the pursuit of things that symbolize power and achievement. They are drawn to rare, unique, or high-status objects, titles, or knowledge, constantly chasing a sense of superiority through material gains. Bharani Nakshatra's deep sense of purpose and transformation ensures that whatever drives them, they pursue it with intensity and commitment. Whether motivated by people, activities, places, or things, their path is rarely passive. They immerse themselves in their desires and ensure that every pursuit leaves a lasting impact.